everyone, Karen here, and today I'm going to be heat embossing a lot of different materials. I have a stack here that are all 1.5 by 3, except for the canvas on the bottom, and I'm going to be stamping this rectangular stamp here on all of them, so I can go back later and put a sentiment in the middle when I'm ready to use it. So the first one I have here is faux leather. Now you're going to want to take some anti-static powder all the way around. Now I have to use the magnets to this because if you use the anti-static powder on your sticky mat won't be sticky anymore. So I'm going to have to do it this way. And because this is hollow in the middle, I can just put my magnet there in the middle. So now I like to emboss with a color ink and clear embossing powder. That's good in case you do make a mistake and you get some of the embossing powder stuck to it. It doesn't show. So I am going to use the bronze pigment ink, and I'm going to stamp this up really good. And we'll probably do it twice, just to make sure I get good coverage. And there's one. And I'll do it a second time. Move this up, bring in some paper. I'm going to take this off. Sprinkle, sprinkle. Give it a little shake. Put this to the side. And a pair of tweezers, so I keep my hand away from the heat, and we emboss. This will take a moment to heat up. There we go. And there it is on some faux leather. And that worked just fine. It's sticking, it's not coming off. That is perfectly fine. And this is the faux leather from Cricut. That worked. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, the next one I have, put this down here, is just craft foam. And we'll put this on here. We'll put this in the middle. We'll take some anti-static powder to it. And we will stamp this up. Now foam, when you heat it, it does get hard. So we'll see how this behaves with the stamp on it. And it also can shrink a little bit, so we will see how this works for embossing. Alright, so there is 2. Let's bring in the powder. Sprinkle, sprinkle. Pour this back in. And heat emboss. And we'll see how this is going to behave. Now it did wrinkle, but let's lay it flat. And let's heat the middle. And once it's all heated, it should flatten back out again. It will just be smaller than what you started with. Okay, I'm just going to put something down on top of it to flatten it. And so it does warp a little bit, but that is kind of fun. It kind of gives it a funky shape. So it did heat emboss. Just know that the fun foam may warp on you a little bit, and you will have to make sure it heats evenly all the way around so it shrinks evenly. But it definitely did heat emboss. Now remember, these two started off the same size. So you can see the foam, when you heat it, it does shrink quite a bit. So maybe that's not the best choice for heat embossing. But it did actually heat emboss. Just kind of acted like a shrinky dink a little bit. All right, so there's those two. Let's bring in the next one. The next one we're going to do is a piece of faux suede. This also is by Cricut, and it comes in a pack of 12 by 12, kind of like paper. So let's put some anti-static powder on here. Hold it down with the magnet. And we'll ink it up. And once again, we'll stamp it twice. I am going to move this magnet a little bit. Be brave. All right. That was a little close to the side. And ink it up again. Okay, now we'll take this off. Sprinkle, sprinkle. Give it a little shake. There we go. And we emboss. Now this I can see already. It is sticking a little bit over here. But since I have clear embossing powder, let's see what it does. I can take a little brush to it and brush it off. But it is sticking just a little bit to the suede. There we go. Now I've never taken heat to this before, so we'll see if it shrinks or anything. This again is sold in 12 by 12 sheets, just like the leather was. There we go. Alright, it's still pliable. Didn't warp too bad, but it definitely is still soft, so you can lay it flat. And it embossed. Suede is a winner. Alright, the next piece I have is a piece of denim that is backed with paper. This also came in a 12 by 12 sheet, and I have had this in my stash a long time. Now this has a little bit of a texture, so let's see what happens here. Because I'm thinking we might have a problem with the embossing powder sticking a little bit. So we'll see. Let's put this down and let's ink it up. This one, it's looking like may have to do this one a third time. Yeah, I'm going to put one more layer here because this is such a porous material, with it being denim fabric. I'm going to put a third stamping on there. Alright, oh, that looks better now. Alright. Alright, so let's try this. Sprinkle, sprinkle. Let's be the moment of truth. See if this is going to stick or not. I'm going to give it a little tap. And looks like it doesn't stick too bad where we don't want it to. Alright, we have some good coverage there. Alright, let's emboss this, see what that looks like. Now I am doing this on top of my silicone mat, so it is heat resistant. But if you're buying a silicone mat, don't assume it's heat resistant, because I did buy one that did warp when you put heat on it. So make sure in the description it says, oh, I think I might be melting the powder on here. Make sure it says heat resistant. I was a little surprised that it wasn't heat resistant, but it definitely warped. Alright, so this paper, the paper backing is curling a little bit. Alright. But it's still pliable, so it can be flattened. Yeah, that will still glue down. It's going to hold it down flat while it cools. There we go. So you can still glue it down, and it can be flattened. But that definitely heat embossed. I would probably do this in maybe a white. But yeah, that definitely worked. Alright, the next one I'm not sure about. The next one is cork. Well, this one might be a little bit of a challenge because it does tear really easy. So let's see what this does. Let's line this up. Let's take some powder to it. And we'll put the magnet in the middle. And let's see if this is still good. Yep, that's all right. I think my little painter's tape here is not wanting to stick anymore. There's so much powder on here. All right. Stamp that really good. And press that down. And we'll do this a second time. Alright, now let's see what this does. Paper, embossing powder, sprinkle, sprinkle. Give it a little tap. That looks pretty good. It doesn't look like it stuck to it, except where the ink was. That looks pretty good. Tweezers. And emboss. Yeah, this cork also came in a paper pad of 12 by 12s. Alright, here we go. It is starting to melt. It's not misshaping, it's not warping. Here we go. Alright, so this heat embossed really well. That came out really nice. Yep, that held up just fine. There we go. There is cork. Alright, this is the one that I think is going to be the most challenging. This has a lot of texture to it, and we'll see if the granules get stuck here inside. Wasn't sure if I was going to try this, but I figured I'd give it a try. Because you won't know until you try. Alright, we'll put this one in. Make sure we're still good. Alright. Now we get ink. Now, I'm going to definitely give this 3 stampings, kind of like I did with the denim, because this is porous, and this also was in a 12 by 12 paper pad, because it's paper backed. I'll show you when we're done. Okay, so the 2 stampings looks pretty good, but I want to put a little bit more on here, just to make sure. Because when you're dealing with natural fibers like this, you want to make sure it gets on there. Alright. Press down really hard. Alright, let's see what this does. Alright, sprinkle, sprinkle. This will be the moment of truth. Nope, it looks like it came off and didn't stick. It just stuck to where I put the ink. Oh, this is promising. This is why you always have to try something, because you never know. And we heat emboss. See, I'm really curious of how this is going to go. Here it comes. Oh, this is going to work. This is going to absolutely work. Even this very uneven burlap. Here we go. Look at that. Even on the very uneven burlap, it embossed. Alright, our pile of good ones is getting very big. Alright, the next one I have is a piece of tracing paper. Let's try this one. Now, I will say that tracing paper and vellum are very interchangeable. I use tracing paper as vellum all the time, but it's nice because tracing paper will come in a nice big pad. And it's a lot less expensive. I think that's in the middle. I'm going to have to clean this off here in a minute because it's getting a little dirty. Alright. Tap, tap, tap. Alright. Do it a second time. It's a little spotty up here. put it one more time because it is a little light on top here. Alright. Oh, that lifted off. I was going to say this is definitely wet now. Alright. Bring in my paper. Sprinkle, sprinkle. And we emboss. I can see where I didn't use the anti-static on here. There are places where it's stuck. Brush that off. And now we emboss. So you can see it did a great job on here. And this is just tracing paper. You can always use tracing paper instead of vellum. And you can run this through a embossing folder also, the tracing paper. It works just as well. And you may have seen me do that before. But yep, there we go. Tracing paper. That's a winner. Okay, the next one I have is acetate. Now, the thing with acetate is you need to make sure it's heat-resistant acetate because not all acetate is heat-resistant. Another thing you can use instead of acetate, so if you're using packaging, I think just, take a piece and test it and see if it is heat-resistant acetate because the stuff that comes in packaging that when they heat it, it shapes to the product inside the packaging, that's not going to be heat-resistant acetate. And it will warp very badly when you heat it. But you can take laminator sheets if you need something inexpensive. Run the laminator sheet through your laminator. Make sure you put a little piece of paper across the top of it so it doesn't get stuck in your machine. And you absolutely can use laminator sheets as acetate when you want to heat emboss because those are absolutely heat resistant. That's how they're made. So let's get this embossed. Alright, so let's get this stamped up. Now, I think I'm going to just leave my piece of painter's tape underneath here. Let me just pull it back a little bit, just so we can see it. Because acetate tends to disappear on you. Alright, we'll put this, well, first let's use the anti-static back, because it being acetate, it most definitely will stick everywhere. Alright. Okay, let's ink this up. Ink it a second time. Alright, I will lift this up. Alright, sprinkle, sprinkle. I'm going to give it a tap because it is acetate. And I will still take my brush to it. Because if the embossing powder is going to stick to anything, it's going to stick to the acetate. And I'll hold it down here. And we emboss. There we go. Now that looks good and melted. So yes, acetate, you absolutely can heat emboss on it. And as long as it's the heat resistant acetate, it won't warp and you'll be just fine. Yep, once it cools, you are good to go. Alright, so the next thing I have is a piece of heavy parchment. Now it looks a lot like plain paper, but it is parchment, and when you feel it, you can feel that it does have that parchment feel to it, instead of it feeling like paper. So first let's put some anti-static powder on here. And now stamp it up. Put the magnet back in the middle. Alright. Ink this up twice. Now it still looks a little light down here, so I'm going to ink this up again. That looks a lot better. So now, bring in the paper. And sprinkle, sprinkle again. Give it a little tap. Yeah, I have my tweezers. And these are the tweezers that are the reverse tweezers, so their resting position is closed. These are really helpful in your craft room, because you don't have to press them. I mean, as you saw me do, I can just lay it on the desk and it will hold it still. Yeah, so if you just look on Amazon, you can just search for reverse tweezers and you'll be able to find them. There we go. So there's some parchment. Alright, our pile of good is getting big. So far, the only I'll call fail is the foam. And that's strictly because it shrinks so much. Now, this here is a piece of very smooth glitter card. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to go. I expect it to do something along the lines of the burlap. So let's see what happens. Alright, so let's get this down here. Get the anti-static powder. stamp. And there we go. That looks good. Notice some of these materials, when they get really wet, they are sticking to the stamp, but that looks good. Bring in some pour that back in there. And bring the heat gun. Let's see what happens. I wasn't really sure about this glitter card. We shall see. Well, I think this is going to work. I don't see any major warping or any other funny business going on. So there you go. Glitter card, yes. You can heat emboss on a smooth glitter card. Now, I wouldn't try it on the chunky glitter card, but this smooth one, it is, that worked just fine. There we go. All the possibilities. All right, so this is mirror card. Ooh, the storm outside my house is getting worse. So if you start hearing the wind, that's what's happening. Because tonight at 8 o'clock, something may happen here that hasn't happened at my house since 1977. We are expected to get snow. Yes, I said snow. Obviously, it's not going to stick to the ground, and it's only going to happen here on the coast. But at 8 o'clock, we may get some snow. If we do, I will most definitely be posting pictures because the last time it happened here was 1977. Because I'm down here in Florida, and I'm in Central Florida. Sometimes the Panhandle gets snow, but I'm just north of Tampa, and we don't get snow. Let's see. All right, that looks pretty good with just one stamping. So I'm going to go ahead and do it now. Yeah, so stand by. We'll see if it actually happens. The last I heard, I think they were like at a 60% chance for us to get snow tonight. And it's all supposed to happen about 8 o'clock. So we shall see. And we heat emboss. There we go. Mirror card. Absolutely. You can heat emboss. Yep, just fine. Now the last one I have is a piece of canvas board. Now I wouldn't do this on a regular stretched canvas because you're not going to be able to press down and stamp on it. But if it's a hardback board, absolutely this would work. I believe this either came from Dollar Tree or from Hobby Lobby. But look in both stores, they have them very reasonably priced. And yeah, so let's try this. Now I was thinking for this last one here, I would actually use a stencil and make a whole background. Then I can go back and put something on top of here. So I'm going to tape this down with some painter's tape. Put a little hinge here. And I'm going to put a little piece of painter's tape behind this so it doesn't slide. I'm just going to roll this in a circle and put it behind here. That. I'll reline this up. Now I'm just looking to where it makes it look like the pattern is going to be good and not look funky. So I want to make sure I'm not ending it right here at the point. I kind of want to bring it to where it overhangs. So I want to have a little bit overhanging here and a little overhanging here. And I also want to make sure I don't see, now where I have it right here, I have that point right at the top. So I'm going to bring this up just enough to where it's in the middle of the pattern. So the points are over here, the edge. I have so much powder on my desk now, I'm not sure if my tape is going to stick. Alright, so I have it not on the points. I've got a little bit of the top, this top row hanging off, a little bit of the bottom row is hanging off, and I didn't end it where any of these points were. Because if you did, it would start to look like you cut your pattern off on one side and it wasn't centered. So I'm going to take my anti-static powder, brush that over, bring this down, make sure I'm still good. And I'm going to tape this down on the top and the bottom. And I'll probably put some on the sides, just because there's so much powder on my desk right now. The tape is not wanting to stick. We'll put some on this side. Now I will take the gold. And I'm going to ink this in. Now you're going to need to make sure you do this heavy enough to where you see no more white. And I'm just going to work my way around. Now, if you're worried your ink is going to dry, what I will do is I'm going to go around and make sure I have good coverage, and then I will put a wet coat on top. And here is just a rounded sponge. Make sure all these little fingers here are all done really good. This stencil here is from Diamond Press. So if you are a Diamond Press fan, maybe you have this in your stash. Make sure this is all staying down. And just this little bit of corner down here. Now I'm going to come back over the top just to make sure this is still wet. And let's see. There we go. All right. So that in and of itself looks pretty cool. But let's heat emboss it. Sprinkle, sprinkle. Make sure we have all of the edge. Give it a little bit of a tap. All right. So let's see what this is going to look like. I think I smudged it over here. So let me bring this back in. Let's see if I can keep my fingers out of it this time. All right, I have gotten so much powder on my desk. I'm going to lay this on top of here to make sure I don't melt the embossing powder on my mat. And I'm just going to start down here in the corner. Now it may take the board a minute to get hot because this is a thicker substance we're using here. There we go. Now it's starting to go. It definitely is taking longer to emboss this because it's a thick surface. It has definitely gotten warm, so I definitely would lay this down on a surface. And it did take a while to get this whole big piece embossed. But I think it is all done now. Alright, so let's close everything up and take a look at everything we did. Alright, so let's look at this. It is warm to the touch. I did have to let it cool for a second. But absolutely, the canvas board heat embossed. Now this is going to be fabulous. I will make something out of this. Alright, so let's look at all the things we heat embossed. Now this first one here, I'm going to call this a semi-fail, simply because of how much it shrunk. Because remember, these were both the same size when we started. Now, if you were going to put some kind of pattern on here and heat emboss it and use it as embellishment, that absolutely would be fine. But I don't know if I would want to put a sentiment on here because of how much it shrinks. I'm not sure about that one. Now the rest of them though, they came out perfect. So this was the paper-backed denim I had, and that absolutely came out. It's not as shiny as the rest of it, but it absolutely did heat emboss. The mirror card, absolutely heat embossed. The smooth glitter card, that absolutely heat embossed. Parchment paper, yep. Heat resistant acetate, yep, that embossed. Tracing paper, vellum would work the same way here. Heat embossed. Oh, have it upside down. Heat embossed. The cork. Yep, it heat embossed. The burlap. It did heat emboss. You can see the reflection a little bit, but this is such a textured medium. It doesn't show up as much, but in person, you can see the shine there. Yep. So I'm going to call that a success. Then we had the faux suede from Cricut. That absolutely heat embossed. And this last one is the faux leather, which absolutely heat embossed. And I think my favorite is the canvas because I did it with the stencil. Now the stencil would work on all of these, but absolutely, you could absolutely make a really nice mixed media. Maybe even with this on the bottom. And then something here, absolutely. But look how shiny that is on the canvas. That is wonderful. So I hope this was helpful for you to see all these different materials that you absolutely can heat emboss on. And I hope you try some yourself. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel and give me a thumbs up. And until next time, stay crafty.